Welcome back to the Deviant Thinking Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Thompson, and today and always we'll explore career advice that breaks the rules. Today's show is amazing, folks. I have with me Hayley Darden, and Hayley is a writer. She has been a recruiter. She works in marketing. This woman has a diverse background, and she's my sister of another mother. I love what she has to say. She believes strongly that it is time to retire jobs as we know them in America, and I would guess worldwide. Hayley and I are going to explore that concept. We're going to talk about resumes, job engagement, finding places to work. Swear, I think we cover everything. So stick around today and enjoy today's can't miss episode. But before we get started, I want to share that for the month of May, my Hell Yes Resumes class is on sale. I am offering $150 off, bringing the price down to $147 for my resume masterclass. In this resume class, I will help you write an amazing resume that will help you find a job that you are engaged in, that you're excited to go to work with, and I'm going to show you all the tips and tricks to really make that happen and put forth a resume that reflects you, stands out, and is definitely remarkably different. You will see in our conversation today with Hayley, she and I talk about resumes and we talk about that need to put yourself out there as an individual and really show your skills and make sure that you're sharing what you do best. And Hell Yes Resumes Masterclass absolutely delivers that. So definitely check out the Hell Yes Resumes Masterclass. Get that discount. It's available just till the end of May. So definitely jump on it. And now let's jump into our podcast with Hayley Darden.
I am beyond excited today to have Hayley Darden here on our podcast. Hayley is amazing. She's held jobs where she's recruited entrepreneurs. She works in innovation. She is a driver in this idea that it's time to retire the idea of jobs. And we're just going to kind of explore today and see where we go. I promise there's going to be some great career advice for anybody who has felt stuck, stifled, wanting to contribute more to the world, and some ideas of how you can do that. So as we begin, Hayley, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to some of these thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jennifer. I'm so excited to be here. Even our prep call was a blast. So I'm going to give you kind of my life or my career life in 3 short chapter titles. So you've got some context on who I am, because I have one of those unconventional careers, all threaded through talent and innovation.
Perfect. I love that. So many people that listen to this podcast have unconventional careers. So I love that you're gonna make that okay. So tell us about your unconventional career.
Yeah. So once upon a time, it started when I went to my dream organization, Ashoka, and my job there was to hire innovators. So I did a lot of kind of an anthropologist of the workplace, really trying to understand what people had done and what unique innovative contributions they had made to their companies. So I did that for quite a while. And then I moved to an organization called the Future Project that at the time was basically reinventing high school and making like a lot of public schools across the country places where people discovered their talents and their passions and what made them awesome. And there, in addition to kind of helping to build an HR team, I then shifted into the innovation team, where I built curriculum on passion, purpose, meaning, and belonging. And what that meant, I call that my fake PhD. So I have a fake PhD in those things. And now I'm working at a company that I kind of consider, it's a tech company. And I think what we're building is the ultimate job crafting tool, even though that's not what you'll see necessarily on our website. That's like the secret story and a big part of why I'm there. It's called Invisible Technologies. And if you're trying to get more efficient at what you're doing, or if you're trying to love what you do more, we're a cool tool. Yeah, but that's my chapters, and all of them, even though they seem so different, are just about people being more alive in their day-to-day work and being able to contribute to organizations that are also more alive.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you recognize that thread of what pulls all of your jobs together. I think that that's something that we miss. People are so worried about job titles and kind of what they mean or industry. And so often I find that when you know what you value, when you know what's important to you, that can show up in like 100 different ways.
Yeah. It's funny, I do a lot of career coaching, and one of the ways, it's funny, I actually started doing this because I was networking with a woman who's a bit more senior than me. We were meeting for coffee in New York City. And by the end of the meeting, her name's Susan, she's so awesome. By the end of the meeting, which was like supposedly networking, Susan just looks at me and she goes, "Are you a coach?" I said, I'm not a coach. She said, "You are a coach." I said, "I'm not." And she said, "Will you be my coach?" I was like, "Yeah, I will." So Susan kind of kicked me off on taking on a really small portfolio of folks I was coaching. But I'll share with you on that point on just kind of disrupting the traditional career path idea, the number one kind of piece of guidance I would give people, which is that we too often, when we think of our careers, get stuck in nouns. So what's my identity? What's my name? What's my function? And the thread I really see is, what are your verbs? So I've never met someone, I always ask people, what are your top 3 verbs that make you come alive? And people are so consistent. Even if they have no idea what they want to do, they'll come out of the gate and go, "Oh man, I'm so alive when I'm creating," or "I'm alive when I'm engaging people." Or "Man, I just love getting shit done." I'm sorry, that was French.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you don't have to edit that out.
Nope.
Anyway, so I find that, really thinking from the perspective of what are your verbs can help you organize thoughts across kind of seemingly disparate career paths.
I absolutely love that. I think that's so true. It's the doing, right? We all like to do something, and what we like to do can be very, very different from each other. So maybe that takes us to the editorial piece that you wrote recently, which is part of how we connected. And it's entitled, "Dear America, It's Time to Retire the Idea of Jobs." Boom.
Yeah.
So are we not going to work anymore? Are we quitting our jobs? Like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but it's not a super great time for jobs. And I have the very uncomfortable belief that just because there are not enough jobs to go around at the moment, and there are not, that there is enough work to go around, and that we just need to think in new ways about what that looks like. And there are real challenges to that. So I don't want to be pie in the sky. I just think step one is to not think about work in terms of jobs. So let me offer a really high level contrast. I think that when people talk about jobs, what they typically mean is there's a set of expectations and routines and activities that I show up and I do the same way every day. And my experience is that the people who are most alive at work and the people who contribute the most at work have a much higher level of learning and variation on the job. So they don't show up and say, "How do I do what I'm told?" They show up and they go, "What can I really offer to advance these results?" And I think that kind of mindset tends to unlock a whole bunch of, it's so simple, shifting from what are the instructions I should follow to what is the unique contribution I can offer. It's like a ninja move. It's such a small shift in perspective, but it unlocks a lot. Was that clear? When you think about something so much, you sometimes kind of get like in your own rabbit hole. Was that clear?
That was totally clear. And I think it's so true. And you're right on the idea of like, yeah, jobs are absolutely a mess right now, right? But there's opportunity in this chaos. There's opportunity for job crafting. There's opportunity for people to say, "I can do this. I can contribute this. You didn't even know I could do this shit."
Yeah.
And I can. And we need to do this shit right now. We didn't know we needed to do it 6 months ago because we were on our hamster wheel. We were following those instructions. We were doing the same thing over and over, but somebody just broke our hamster wheel. It's done.
Yes.
It's been thrown out the damn window. Let it go. Now that the hamster wheel's not there, oh God, what can I do? And it's a
Yes.
huge opportunity. So
Yes.
I'm with you. It's not, we shouldn't paint it all roses right now. It's going to be hard, but I think there's opportunity in this struggle that we're going through.
The first thing I want to do is like caveat, like, the real problem is immediacy. Well, there's an immediacy of pay thing that's so important and so urgent for so many people. But there's also an opportunity to have the experience at work that people have wanted for a really long time, which is to show up and feel like you're contributing. Because people are open to that right now. They're open to people kind of showing up and saying, here's what I see can be done.
Absolutely. And I think there's an opportunity for realness that there
Yeah.
has never been before as well. Like there's nothing, I'm going to segue to it this way. Like I was talking to someone yesterday and he was talking about Zoom calls and people complaining about kids showing up on Zoom calls. And his comment was, if this is the first time you're finding out your coworkers have kids is on a Zoom
Yeah.
call, like something is way more messed up than their kids showing up on a Zoom call with you.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I agree with that.
there's a humanness that's suddenly being allowed. And again,
Yeah.
that idea of what resources do you bring? How do you do this? So in your very first role where you were working with intrapreneurs, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like there was a lot of opportunity for job crafting with those people. And so now I see that as applicable to today. So maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I think before shifting, the thing I should mention on like why I think hamster wheels are bad is that they train you to think you can't do anything else, and the truth is that you can. Yeah, so job crafting and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs excel above all else. So an entrepreneur is someone who comes inside an organization, sees something new that needs to be done, and tackles it. And they are in charge of asserting what's happening, right? And the stories that you'll hear are like, once upon a time, I was at big company. They worked in one way, and then I like changed the supply chain and made it better. Or I saw an opportunity to start a different department. Probably easiest actually to give my own example here. I ended up starting a fellowship inside an organization because the senior talent needed a lot more access to junior talent. And there were a lot of like hoops to jump through there. So anyways, job crafting, what's important about job crafting? Basically, the key message in both entrepreneurship and job crafting is the same, which is that you need to be in charge of your own work experience instead of having someone else be in charge of your work experience. Entrepreneurship is like the expert level of that, where you're really actively shaping the organization. But job crafting is kind of entry level of that, and anyone can do it. So what job crafting means, and they've done a lot of research on this, some comes out of Yale, it's all the sort of thing that I could say, this is statistically validated, right? But there are 3 ways to kind of change the job that you're in the context of job crafting. One is to change your tasks. So if you have like one task that you really hate, see if you can hand it off to someone else, because sometimes that little loss of energy is a really big deal. Another thing you can do is you can change your relationship. So let's say you're in a product team and you're only interacting with like operations, but you love marketing. If you build like a tiny inroad to someone in the marketing team, you start to collaborate there, even if your job changes only a tiny bit, it can like skyrocket your engagement. And the last thing, and this is like the most empowering thing to me, is that changing what your job means to you can have fundamentally enormous impacts on your outcome. So I think there's some cool studies on this I can send you later, but one of the most interesting books I've seen that speaks to this point is called The Dream Manager. And what it talks about is janitors in some public high schools who had like crazy levels of engagement because the story they told themselves about the work that they were doing. And they were, by the way, super productive at their jobs, like because they kind of considered themselves like the keepers of safety and the keepers of cleanliness. And they started to like love the kids. And it's this story of like how the story you tell yourself about the meaning of what you're doing can have a transformative impact on how happy you are and how much you contribute. So I think there's a kind of a way that jobs tend to leave people feeling powerless, or that some sort of corporate overlord is dictating their destiny. And that's not true. So take control back by taking control back of your story.
I so relate to this, and I so love it on so many levels. So, okay, let me capture a couple things. So the book that you said, can you say that book again?
The Dream Manager. Yeah.
The Dream Manager. Okay, so I'll be
Mm-hmm.
sure to link to that in the show notes so that people can check it out. I have not read it, so I am a book junkie, so I cannot wait to read that as well. So that's super. And then talking about the story part, I just so agree with you. I'm going to share my personal story of this. When I worked at Target Corporation, I'll share where I worked. I made, I helped in the process of creating clothing for women. And I remember one day sitting around, and I really had this attitude. I mean, I'd gotten stale and I'd gotten frustrated with my job. And in the back of my mind, my job was to make cheap clothing for women.
Mm.
That's not really inspiring, right? And
Yeah,
I was
no, not at all.
no, right? And so I sat back and I changed my attitude, and I talked to my team, and we actually came up and we crafted a statement that it was our responsibility to help women feel beautiful and confident every day. And it was amazing. The team was engaged. I was engaged. And that was my own little team. But suddenly, like, that message got sent out beyond my little team. And then it was like the division had this vision of this, and it kind of kept growing. And at that time, we were up from a market share standpoint, I would say 4 to 5%, when women's apparel overall was down 3%. And I think some of it, all of us changed our vision, that we made women feel beautiful and confident every day. And shit, I wanted to go to work then. Like, that was exciting. So it's not that it has to, and I guess I'm sharing that because it doesn't have to come from someone external telling you that. Yes. You can decide that your work matters.
100%.
And I love the story of the janitors. And, another one there in Minneapolis, they changed the street cleaners' jobs to ambassadors. It was one of the most brilliant moves I think ever made, because suddenly someone who used to pick up garbage was suddenly this person who was an ambassador to the town, and they saw themselves as responsible of making everyone feel welcome. You want the town clean because you're making sure they everyone wants to be welcome there. So great.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So I guess that's the first piece of advice for folks. Change your story about your job to be more engaged.
Yeah. And put yourself in, I think a lot of times people are part of the supporting cast in their own story about their job. And you need to be like the lead actor in your own life and decide what purpose you're giving to it. And, here what I can say. Also, Jennifer, I love your story and I want to hear more about it. Here what I can say is, like, Ashoka, if you haven't heard of it, is a really, like, in some circles, well-known, very, very well-reputed NGO that a lot of people associate as one of those places that you can go to work and have an experience of purpose, right? And I interviewed thousands and thousands of people, and what they wanted was to go to an organization that had a sense of purpose. And you know what I learned in, like, about, frankly, 10 years in kind of the world of purpose-driven jobs? I was also on a board for an organization that matched people. It was called Rework, and it was later acquired. But they matched people with meaningful jobs. You know what makes a meaningful job? The meaning you give to a job. You can be in a purpose-driven organization and be deeply engaged, or you can be a janitor who decides that what it means to pick up trash is to create a sense of welcome. And I think that is who is in charge of the purpose is you. Purpose is not an attribute only of an organization. It's an attribute of the people within it.
Wow. That's pretty huge. And I think I'm kind of curious with that. We see these statistics of people, 13% or something of the people are engaged in the work that they do, which
so low,
right? It's gross. But I feel like so often people are looking for the organization to engage them. And what you're saying is, no, you person, you are personally responsible to choose to be engaged.
Yep.
Some folks are going to have some soul searching to do on that one, huh?
I mean, look, I think it's great that managers are asking the question, how can they make people more engaged? And here I would offer an insight from for my fake PhD. The language is wrong. Like, you can't make someone more engaged. You can make an environment, a place that someone can be more engaged. There's a great book called Why We Do What We Do. Autonomy support is the thing I would say is really important on the manager side in terms of engagement. And that is communicating to your employees that they have opportunities to make choices. And that can be big or small, but it's a management posture that's really empowering. And that's what managers can do to help create a culture of purpose. But really, that's in charge of the people. Like, a purpose-driven organization is an organization where individuals bring their own sense of purpose.
I love that, because it kind of goes back to where we started with, like, how are jobs changing, and with all that's going on in the world right now, and this lack of security around jobs, it really says to me that managers should trust themselves and the people that they work with to look at those people and say, what can you contribute? What can you do differently? What can you bring to the table that can help us right now?
100%. I wonder how many people know what they can contribute. I guess I'll just say that. I wonder how much soul searching has been done on, like, the unique thing you can offer. And that's not the same thing as your job description. It's the equivalent of, like, I don't know if you've ever, like, had one of those life events. Like, the thing that comes to mind is, like, when someone dies, and it's a really hard time for your whole family, and everyone wants to help, but no one knows what to do. And so they show up and they go, what can I do to help? And what they're doing is they're putting the person who needs help in the position of having to direct them. And it feels so different when someone shows up and says, I made you a casserole. I organized your 6 best friends to get on or having a baby. Another great example, not even just grief, but people show up and they know how to help. When people have done a level of self-reflection on the unique perspectives, gifts, talents, motivations that they have, they start showing up to work that way. And instead of just saying, what are the instructions I should follow? They say, here's how I understand our business objectives, and here's how I can help. And it changes everything.
Absolutely. And I want to add, I think you have to know what to say no to as well with that.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Because I think it's easy that when you offer that up and someone says, hey, oh, Jennifer, you run a small business. We need some help with our small business accounting. Help me with that right now. I have to know to say, you know what? I kind of do that and I'm capable of it, but I am not the best person for that. What I'm really good at is, helping you come up with your branding, helping you tell your story, helping you build a culture that's innovative, helping you do, like, if I can tell you all the things I can do, I have to also be able to tell you that, if you're going to afford it, if you really need it, if this is the one thing you need, I can lift this rock for today, but it's not the rock I want to lift every day, because it's going to exhaust me and I'm not going to be the best help. Where I do the best help is this. And I think good people know what they can contribute the best. And, it's often that feeling of what's in your body. When someone asks you to do something, if your body floats and you're like, oh yeah, I can help with that, take a notice that, because then it's offer that more. And if it's when someone says, hey, can you do the accounting for us? And you want to sink into the chair and just cry as you say yes, say no to that, because that's not the thing that's going to keep you engaged.
So what I'm hearing from you is that, I was saying, take charge of your own purpose. And what you're saying is take charge of your own engagement. Like, there's, offer your yeses to things that are going to really engage you, and offer no's when that's, like, not going to be something that works for you.
Yes, completely. And sometimes your no is someone else's yes.
Totally.
And I think, your example of, organizing people around the baby shower thing, I am definitely not the one to organize everyone to figure out what day of the week they're going to bring meals. Now, I may be the one to organize the party for the baby shower, because that's kind of my jam. I love a good party. I love to put the things together. I love to do the food. I love to do the catering. Don't ask me to send out the invitations though, because they're probably going to go out at the last minute and they're going to be half done. And I'm going to forget 10 people on the list. So kind of, owning that and knowing what it is that you do is just, it's important, because you're going to do it better when you love it. And the more you do things better, the more you get to elevate yourself, because they're like, oh, she's pretty awesome at that, and
Yeah.
that's how you move your career up the line, is doing things you're good at.
That's a really, really important point, and it's not something that everyone knows. And I think it's one of like the very happiest facts of modern organizational science is that engagement and productivity increase together. And that's one of the reasons why it makes a lot of sense. Like why your boss cares about you being engaged is because the more engaged you are, the more productive you are. So the stats are something like, people who are not satisfied are like minimally productive. The people who are inspired are like 115 times more productive than the average. It's like a cloning machine. Like you become like, you have the force of 4 people when you get more engaged.
Probably the most popular podcast I have ever done thus far is a podcast that's entitled The Myth of Work-Life Balance.
Ooh.
And part of that podcast is all about the myth that you work too much, that you have this balance that goes back and forth. What I find is that people who love what they do and they're engaged never come to me and tell me they need more work-life balance. I've never had that conversation. If someone is engaged, they never feel that way. But someone who's not engaged and is not aligned with the work that they do, they are constantly telling me I need more work-life balance. And they might not even work nearly as many hours as that person who's not telling me that, who is engaged. Like it's kind of, again, the self-fulfilling prophecy of like, you find the balance when you're engaged, because you don't care the number of hours you work. It's not work. You're loving what you're doing.
I want to take a second and double click on something I tell the people I work with from a coaching perspective. It's really brief, but I've probably looked at like more resumes than most any human should ever need to look at ever. So many thousands of resumes, and way too many of them are like a very like detailed history of everything you've ever done ever. Like, once upon a time, I bought a laundry machine. Or truly, like every task you have ever successfully completed is listed. And one of the things I find is people fail to edit for their own engagement. So I just want to offer that what I've noticed is it looks really great when people make really strong edits to leave the things on there that they loved doing and to leave the things off that they didn't like doing. And even if it's a small project that you loved and you found, like, so for me, I've recently stepped into a marketing leadership role, even though that's not my background. And part of that is because I found I so loved telling stories and I'm great at it. And so I put more of that on my resume, even though it was a very small part of my job, because it was a really big part of my future job that I knew that I was going for. So I think, our society is just designed to hire people to do things that they have already done. And yet people have a deep and intrinsic need to keep learning and evolving. And one very simple way to hack the system is to make sure your resume shows what you loved doing that you've already done, that you're great at. And what are the signals? Like where are the seedlings that deserve more growth? The stuff that you just started doing, but you were really great at and you want to do more of. Instead of, just if you didn't love doing it, like just don't list it. Anyway.
You are speaking my language, girl. I say that over and over to my clients of just because you're capable of it doesn't mean it belongs on your resume. If you don't love it, there is not enough space on that resume for it to be there. Because if you tell people that you can eat sushi, but you don't actually like sushi, guess what you're eating for dinner, right? Like, you can choke it down, but if it's not your jam, like don't put it on there, because that's where the disengagement comes for sure. So that is absolutely fabulous advice. It is fully in alignment with the deviant thinking way for sure. Because it's super, super valuable to put what you love on your resume. So, okay. So you said you've looked at more resumes, right? This is so many of my clients. That's why they hired me in the beginning was a resume. Have you ever found anything on a resume that where someone maybe put themselves out there and was a little risky, that was too much?
Never have I seen it ever.
But you've seen a boring, I bet.
I have seen too many resumes that try to impress instead of communicate.
Ooh. Tell me more about that.
It's kind of an obsession with qualifications, and very few resumes bother to just say, to focus on who you are and the unique impact you've made on the businesses that you've been in. Usually the communication goal is also, resumes are miserable. Let me just take a pause for a second and say, I have read, I think I read in 1 year, like 5,000 resumes. And when I had to make my own, I was a mess. Because you kind of feel like you have to prove something to the universe and sort of, justify your existence. Like, hello world, here's why I'm valuable. And it's quite vulnerable. And my roommate at the time, like, had to walk me through it, even though, like, I offer this playbook to people all the time. So it's like, I just empathize with what, like, a weirdly existential experience it is to try and justify your value on, an 8x11. Which is, like, kind of what the exercise sometimes feels like, especially if you're in a job transition, because again, hiring functions are not organized to see what you should do next. They're organized to hire you for what you have already done. And that's probably not great for you. In terms of, so there's just a little bit of a failure sometimes to really dig deep and communicate what the business results are that you have driven, that you want to drive again. And kind of this insecurity that comes through, that's just like, here's why I want you to think I can do the thing I think you want. So don't write a resume that communicates who you think someone wants to hire. Write the resume that only you can write, because you're the only person that's had your experience. It's
amen. Which also, I would say, leads me to believe you're not one of those folks who think you should tweak your resume to every single job that's out there to post and pray that you'd get a job.
The post and pray? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Such a Hail Mary. Post and pray is, so I've seen people, I'll give you my perspective, and I bet we'll find some alignment. I've seen people skew way too far on two different ends of the spectrum. So one spectrum is the one resume to rule them all. This requires no context. And I ship it off into the universe and, like, hope ZipRecruiter loves me, and, like, that's like a Britney Spears idea, model of fame, but, like, I am equally interesting to, like, everyone in the whole world. And it's a failure to understand your audience. And it's sometimes a failure to understand yourself. Because frankly, you don't want everyone to hire you. You want some people to hire you and not other people to hire you. Because, like, turns out there's such a thing as a job that is better or worse for you. And it's your job to know what that is. Anyway, I've also seen people over-index on getting too specific. So feeling like they have to write a unique resume for everything that could ever be interesting. And it can be really overwhelming. So to summarize, there's the one size fits all, I'm all things to all people resume. And there's the hyper, oh my gosh, I have to pitch you exactly for this. My take is that there are usually 3 different meaningful things you could do at any given time. So let's take, let's see if I can come up with a good example. Well, let's just take me as an example. I have worked always in roles that require engaging people, doing a lot of communication, doing a lot of analysis. I love, and I'm creative, right? I could write a resume that explains why I would be great at business development. I could write a resume that would explain why I would be great at communications. And I could write one that explained why I'd be great in like, let's say, a recruitment capacity. Those aren't super different from each other. And there are only 3, right? It's a limited set of things I might want to do next. So I always encourage people to think of 3 next versions of yourself that feel authentic, you can get excited about. And write 3 resumes, one for each of those future yous that have something to do with who you've been and something to do with who you're gonna become, and then get that to someone who cares. And, like, yeah, but it's 3. It's not infinity and it's not 1, is my approach.
I love that. And I'm gonna bet that those 3 resumes look pretty close to each other.
Oh yeah.
But maybe highlighting some of the tasks and actions that you did in relationship to those different jobs. But like you said, you're super creative. All of those resumes are going to share that creative part because you're going to be happy when you're being creative. They're going to all share that you're a good communicator and that you like to tell stories. And they're going to probably all talk about the people side of things. The examples you use might change slightly based on the different jobs. But all 3 of those resumes, we're going to know you're the same person.
Oh, I mean, there's at least 80% content overlap.
Thank you. Yes. Because it's you. It's not you're not matching a job.
Yeah. Yeah. You've only
Holy
lived
shit.
one life, and you probably have about 3 different next steps you could take at any given time that could be right. And
I love that.
Hence, like, there's a limited amount of variation because you've only been one person, but like, there is some variation because you get to make choices about who you're going to become. And the variation represents the choices you want to make about the purposes and gifts you want to apply in the world next.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, we all have a choice, right? Which kind of brings us back to where we started. There's this idea of like that it's time to retire some of the jobs. And so if someone's in a job that needs to be retired, what do they do?
Oh, I love this. There are 3 things I think people can do if they're in a job that needs to be retired. The first one is to resist and take power back. And that doesn't mean an overthrow. It doesn't mean leading a rebellion. What it means, a lot of times when people are in a job that needs to be retired, the big problem is usually that they're not in charge of it. They have no sense of control. They're not in charge of the story. They're living in somebody else's story. You are never going to do a good job at your job if you're in somebody else's story, full stop. That doesn't work for you, and it doesn't work for your employer. So take control of the story. Decide, why is your job meaningful to you? And that is your story for you. And then read some of the stuff on job crafting and see if there are tiny tweaks you can make to your everyday responsibilities. That meeting you hate, can get out of the meeting you hate because it might be making your job like pretty terrible. Or maybe there's one task you're miserable at that slows you down every week. Can you just find, because Jennifer, this gets to your point earlier when you were talking about, organizing bridal showers. Some people like to do different things. Can you barter with a colleague? Can you just trade like the part you hate for the part you love? So take charge of small tweaks to your job as it is that can change your experience dramatically, and you be in charge of the story. So that's point 1. So be in charge. Second piece, that's if you're in a job you want to stay in, you need to take control of it. The second thing is if you're on the job hunt, because your job needs to be retired, I recommend the sit-in method. That's just showing up somewhere and telling them how you can help until they pay you. And that's, of course, if you have 3 months of runway or more, usually. But it works. Like when people show up and even if they don't, this is one thing I want people to get. Oh, there's a stat on this. The number, Jennifer, I wish I could remember this stat, but I'll allow curious listeners to look it up. The number of jobs that are filled that are never posted is enormous. So if you think there's no work because there's not a job posting, that's not true. That just means like a job posting is so far downstream. That's like, I've been feeling this pain for months, right? But if you show up somewhere you want to be and you start helping out, a lot of times people end up willing to throw you on the payroll because you're offering something they didn't know they needed. And you have to trust your ability to see what's needed and to help.
That is so true. I am totally there with you. So the statistic that gets thrown around a lot is 80% of the jobs never get posted. And I think a lot of it's true. And I think especially the higher functioning jobs. I mean, okay, we all know the job at McDonald's is going to get posted, right? We know they need a server, right? That's there. But the real thinking, the real engaging jobs, the career jobs are often crafted. And they are because someone showed up. And there's really neat ways that people can show up today. You don't have to walk into someone's office to show up, right?
Yeah.
I interviewed Tim DeMarais from the
I follow his work. I love him. Yeah, go ahead.
I interviewed him a few weeks back, and he talked about his most recent hire was someone who engaged often in their Facebook community. So he knew them already. They were already contributing. They were showing up on a daily basis. And he said that he didn't need a resume. He'd already shown his value that he could give to that organization. He'd already been engaged. He'd already been having great conversations about the work that they were doing. It was a matter of how do they find a place for him.
Yeah.
So, when you say you have to camp out or sit in, that doesn't necessarily mean physical, especially our times of social distancing.
Yep.
There are other ways to do that. And I also want to be fair. I have absolutely had clients walk up to the building of the company that they want to work for. And granted, this is not like Facebook or Google where there's millions of employees. There's smaller organizations that they know,
Yeah.
and walk up and knock on the front door and be like, hey, this is what I do. I'm really good at it. This is what you guys do. I think we could work together. And they've gotten jobs. So you're totally right. Get out there and decide you're going to be engaged, and decide you're going to find work that you are engaged in, and show up in many different ways. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Great advice.
The one thing I would add there is a lot of times, if I were listening to this, the thing I would say is like, well, a lot of those jobs get filled with people already know. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I hired my buddy, Phil, I used to work with. And my advice on that would be know who you want to know. So start building relationships with the places that you want to hire you, because then they will know you, and that's what happened with Pim. This guy loved what he did. So he starts participating in the community, and Pim notices. So then he hires him.
Absolutely.
So don't let, hierarchies and networks and any sense of like elitism or good old boyism or feeling like you're sitting at the uncool kids lunch table, like literally show up, introduce yourself, sit down. And like, sometimes it won't work. But if you try long enough, I think it will.
I completely agree. And you know what, when it doesn't work, usually that person's just a butt. I mean, let's be serious. Most people who are successful in business love meeting people. That's how you get more business.
Yeah.
That's how they drive business. They want people who are engaged and excited about the work that they do. If you show up as engaged and excited about who they are and the work that they do, they want to talk to you.
Yeah.
There's very few people that I know that it's an inconvenience for them to meet someone.
Yep.
So you have to kind of go with that assumption of it's worth reaching out, that you're worth it, that you can contribute enough that you're not wasting their time.
I love that. And then the last thing I'd say is some really cool. So we were talking about advice you would give for people. Also, there's a lot of really cool organizations out there. I'm volunteering with some friends right now in an organization called Gather For. What I want to be clear about, not super mature yet, but I do think it's a really hopeful story of some ways that people are starting to organize. So it is an organization that forms support teams around people who are looking for work, and are not just looking for work, looking for support. And it helps with both short-term needs, so like food security, if that's where the concern is, or housing security, and it helps with the longer-term career questions. So I just want to remind folks that there are people out there hustling to provide, different level support in these times. So like the recap is take control of your story. Second piece, take control of who you know. Go sit in, take control of what you offer, go in, sit in. And then the last one is, there are also people, if you can't do that right now, there are people out there helping with that.
Fabulous. Well, Hayley, this has been an absolutely delightful conversation. I think we went everywhere in the world and all around, and kind of back to a great home base here. I love the idea of people feeling confident that it's time to retire the idea of jobs, and seeing that right now might be a really empowering time for that. So I thank you for your insights and genuine enthusiasm about the work that you do.
Thanks. It's so great to have me. It's been awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Is there a way that people can connect with you going forward, or a place where they can follow your work?
Yeah. I write on, well, you can Google me. Email me at hayley@invisible.email. Invisible, like a Harry Potter cape, .email, Hayley, Hayley. You can also, that's the best place to follow me. And then I can direct you to different social media places.
All right. That sounds good. And I think you also post some things on Medium and on your LinkedIn profile, so they can follow your LinkedIn profile as well. And we will definitely link your LinkedIn profile for them to follow you in the show notes. Thank you, and have a great day, and be deviant.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you had as much fun listening to the interview with Hayley as I had conducting it. Absolutely amazing human being. And as you can tell, she wants people to be engaged in their work and love what they do. And again, as that reminder today that the Hell Yes Resumes Masterclass is on sale for that $150 off, bringing the total to just $147 for lifetime access on how to create that great resume that will help you find a job that you can love, that you will be engaged in, that you can do great work that has purpose. So don't miss it. Use the coupon code REMARKABLE to get that deal, and we're going to link to that in the show notes. Now, if you all have loved this podcast or any other podcast that we've done, please take a moment and head on over to iTunes and give us a review. Those reviews mean the world to us. Also, until next time, be engaged in the work you do, have fun, and definitely be deviant.